History as we learn it is often a sanitized narrative, a tale told from the victor's perspective. It's a polished facade, hiding the cracks and blemishes beneath. But behind the gleaming monuments and heroic tales lie uncomfortable truths. These truths challenge our understanding of the past. They expose the raw, often brutal underbelly of human history. This essay delves into these hidden corners. It aims to shed light on the dark secrets history often tries to conceal. From the founding of nations to global conflicts, we will unearth the often brutal realities. We will challenge the accepted narratives. And in doing so, we will gain a deeper, more nuanced understanding of our shared past. These are not mere footnotes in the grand tapestry of time. They are integral threads, woven into the very fabric of our present. By confronting these uncomfortable truths, we can learn from the mistakes of the past. We can strive to build a future where such injustices are not repeated. This is the story of history's dark secrets. The United States of America, a beacon of liberty, a champion of democracy. This is the image projected throughout the world, a nation that stands tall as a symbol of freedom and justice. From the towering Statue of Liberty to the majestic skyline of Washington, D.C., these symbols evoke a sense of pride and hope. This is the image projected throughout the world. Tourists flock to national monuments, eager to witness the grandeur of a country that promises liberty and justice for all. The American dream, a vision of prosperity and equality, draws people from all corners of the globe. But the nation's founding is steeped in a cruel irony. Beneath the surface of these grand symbols lies a history marred by contradiction and hypocrisy. The dark clouds that gather over historical landmarks serve as a metaphor for the nation's troubled past. The very same men who penned eloquent declarations of freedom were also architects of a system built on human bondage. The signing of the Declaration of Independence, a moment celebrated for its proclamation of liberty, stands in stark contrast to the reality of enslaved Africans toiling on plantations. While proclaiming that all men are created equal, the Founding Fathers turned a blind eye to the horrors of slavery. They spoke of inalienable rights, yet denied these very rights to an entire race of people. The contradiction is glaring, a blemish on the nation's ideals. They enshrined it in the Constitution, a document meant to guarantee liberty and justice for all. This foundational text, revered and upheld, contained within it the seeds of inequality. The very laws that were supposed to protect freedom were twisted to justify oppression. This hypocrisy, this stark contrast between ideals and actions, is a stain on the nation's conscience. The torn and stained flags symbolize a fractured identity, a nation grappling with its own contradictions. Historical protests against slavery highlight the ongoing struggle for true equality. Millions of Africans were forcibly brought to America's shores. They arrived in chains, stripped of their freedom and humanity. The journey across the Atlantic was brutal, a harrowing passage that marked the beginning of centuries of suffering. They were subjected to centuries of unimaginable cruelty and oppression. Families were torn apart, lives were destroyed, and a legacy of pain was etched into the fabric of the nation. The conditions of slavery were inhumane, a stark reminder of the depths of human cruelty. Their forced labor fueled the nation's economic engine, even as their humanity was denied. The wealth and prosperity of the United States were built on the backs of enslaved people. Cotton fields and industrial scenes tell the story of a nation that thrived at the expense of human suffering. This uncomfortable truth exposes the flawed foundation upon which the nation was built. The cracked and weathered documents, the ruins of old plantations, all serve as reminders of a past that cannot be ignored. The legacy of slavery is a shadow that continues to loom over America. The legacy of slavery continues to cast a long shadow over America. Modern protests echo the cries for justice that have resonated through the centuries. The historical maps of slave trade routes trace the paths of a dark history that still influences the present. It's a reminder that freedom, for many, was not a gift bestowed, but a right hard-won after centuries of struggle. The Civil Rights Movement, a pivotal chapter in the nation's history, showcases the relentless fight for equality. Diverse crowds celebrating freedom symbolize the ongoing journey towards a more just and inclusive society. European colonialism, a period often romanticized as an age of exploration and discovery. The tales of brave explorers setting sail into the unknown, mapping uncharted territories, and bringing back exotic treasures have been glorified in countless stories and textbooks. Yet beneath this veneer of progress lies a brutal reality. The so-called Age of Discovery was also an age of unprecedented violence and exploitation. It was an era marked by conquest, exploitation, and unimaginable cruelty. Entire civilizations were decimated, their cultures erased, and their people enslaved or killed. European powers, driven by greed and a sense of superiority, carved up continents, subjugated entire populations, and plundered resources. The wealth of these nations grew, but it was built on the backs of the oppressed. The transatlantic slave trade stands as a chilling testament to the horrors of this era. Millions of Africans were forcibly taken from their homeland, packed into ships under inhumane conditions, and sold into slavery. Millions of Africans were torn from their homes, subjected to the Middle Passage, and forced into a life of servitude in the Americas. The journey itself was deadly, with countless lives lost to disease, starvation, and abuse. The human cost of this trade is immeasurable, a tragic chapter in human history. Families were torn apart, cultures were destroyed, and the legacy of this atrocity still reverberates today. But the brutality of colonialism extended far beyond the slave trade. In many regions, colonial rulers imposed harsh regimes, exploiting local populations and resources to the brink of collapse. In the Belgian Congo, King Leopold II's reign of terror resulted in the deaths of millions. His pursuit of rubber, a valuable commodity, led to unspeakable atrocities including mass mutilations and killings. His pursuit of rubber, a valuable commodity, led to unspeakable atrocities including mass mutilations and killings. The Congolese were forced into labor under brutal conditions, and those who resisted faced severe punishment. These acts of barbarity were not isolated incidents. Across the globe, colonial powers employed similar tactics to maintain control and extract wealth. They were systemic and widespread. Policies of divide and rule, forced labor, and cultural suppression were common practices. Colonialism left an indelible mark on the world, shaping global power structures and leaving behind a legacy of poverty, inequality, and conflict. The scars of colonialism are still visible today, in the economic disparities, social tensions, and ongoing struggles for justice and equality in former colonies. World War II, a global conflict etched in our collective memory as a fight against tyranny. It was a time when nations united against a common enemy and the world witnessed unprecedented acts of bravery and sacrifice. The war reshaped the geopolitical landscape and left an indelible mark on history. But amidst the heroism and sacrifice there lie dark secrets, secrets that challenge our understanding of morality and the true cost of victory. These hidden truths often remain overshadowed by the grand narratives of triumph and liberation. The use of atomic bombs against Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945 remains a deeply controversial chapter of the war. The decision to unleash such devastating power was not made lightly, yet its consequences were far-reaching and profound. While proponents argue that the bombings were necessary to end the war swiftly, the devastating human cost raises troubling questions. The cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki were reduced to rubble, and the lives of countless civilians were irrevocably altered in an instant. The instantaneous annihilation of hundreds of thousands of civilians, many of them women and children, remains a stark reminder of the horrors of nuclear warfare. The images of suffering and destruction are etched into the collective consciousness of humanity. Beyond the immediate devastation, the long-term effects of radiation poisoning continued to plague survivors for decades. The silent, invisible killer left a legacy of pain and suffering that extended far beyond the initial blasts. The bombings ushered in the nuclear age, a period marked by anxiety, fear, and the constant threat of annihilation. The world entered a new era where the specter of nuclear war loomed large, influencing international relations and shaping the course of history. The decision to use atomic bombs was not simply a military one. It was a complex and multifaceted choice, influenced by a myriad of factors including political, strategic, and ethical considerations. It was heavily influenced by geopolitical considerations, particularly the desire to limit Soviet influence in the post-war world. The bombings were seen as a demonstration of power, a message to the world about the new order that was emerging. This raises uncomfortable questions about the true motivations behind the bombings and the price of victory. Were the bombings a necessary evil to end the war, or were they a calculated move in the chess game of global politics? The answers remain shrouded in darkness, leaving us to ponder the moral complexities of this pivotal moment in history. The Cold War, a period of ideological struggle between the United States and the Soviet Union. While the two superpowers never engaged in direct military conflict, they waged a shadow war through covert operations. These clandestine actions, often carried out in the name of democracy and freedom, had devastating consequences. Operation Ajax, the CIA-orchestrated coup in Iran in 1953, is a prime example. In an effort to secure Western oil interests, the democratically elected government of Mohammad Mossadegh was overthrown, paving the way for decades of authoritarian rule. In South America, Operation Condor saw the U.S. government support brutal dictatorships in their fight against communism. These regimes, responsible for widespread human rights abuses, received training, weapons, and funding from the United States. These covert operations, shrouded in secrecy and often justified as necessary evils, had long-lasting consequences. They destabilized regions, toppled democratically elected governments, and fueled violence and instability. The hypocrisy of promoting democracy while actively undermining it abroad is a stain on the Cold War legacy.